Okay, so I'm working on a life-size 115% example of the bufflehead drake that I did in 2013 for the World Rig Show. And here's an image of that completed drake, the same as the one that we're working on. And I just wanted to show you some of the important things about when you're carving around the eye area. Notice I have drilled the hole all the way through the bird before I cut out the top view of the head, but that helps lock that position in. And when you're working around the area of the eye, in front of the eye, I like to use like a pointed ruby tool here, and that lets me maintain that really nice crease in front of the eye there in that area. And then as we move forward on the piece, use more of a flat or slightly rounded tool, like I use a lot of carbides in that, and then you can work that area and smooth it out just in behind the bill. So we set that all up there. I think it's really important that you complete all of the carving around the eye. I always find it hard to get a good sense of what the life is going to be in the bird without the eyes in, so I always get that in fairly quickly. So we've got a pretty basic roughed out bird here, and now we're going to get the eyes in this piece right away. So when you look at the front view, you see the shapes in that eye trough area is really critical to be just about where you're going to be when you're finished. It's not something that you can really carve very well after the eye's in place, so you want to have most of that done before you start your carving. When I go to set the eyes, I do it my way. It's a way that worked for me for a long time. Having that hole through the eye is really important. And then I use a ball-shaped ruby cutter, and I open up the eye area just slightly larger than the glass eye itself, and I'll just be working that in, and I actually work the hole in at the correct attitude for the eye. So slightly angled forward, slightly angled down, and I create a cavity inside there for the eye with a little bit of wiggle room so that you can put the two eyes in together and set them up where they need to be. So we'll move on to the actual, I'll demonstrate that, and then the setting of the eyes as well. Another little thing I noticed was my ruby cutter here is kind of plugged up with some filler or other material, and instead of throwing these away, it's pretty easy to clean them. I know people buy these things over and over and again, but I've used a good set of ruby cutters for a long time. If you take a torch, one of these little micro torches here, you can burn all of that material out, but you do need to use a pair of pliers or something to hold on to it and get this thing heated up. And I use the torch and I get that thing, I move it around a little bit, get it heated up until that thing is glowing orange, and you'll notice that all of the debris in the cutter will start burning away. Turns black, and then eventually it'll go pure white as we get this really, really hot. Move it around. I don't know much about metallurgy or the effect of heat on rubies, but whatever they've put this together with, it holds up to extreme heat very, very well. And notice the changing color. It's turning to almost a white color, and you can see that ball glowing now. So pretty sure most of my debris is burned out of there at this point. It's got a good glow going. And then what we want to do is just quench that in some water. So I got my paint bucket here, and I'm just going to quench that in there and cool that off. You don't want to burn yourself. Then as it quenches it, it kind of blasts away all of the stuff that's clogging up the rubies. Anyway, that works extremely well. Last thing you want to do is take your ruby cutter here when you finish the heat. Take it to your compound here, your rubber cleaning compound, and just hit that a few times. And that looks like a brand new ruby. Nice and lots of bite to it there. That's ready to use. Okay, so the next step is to use the tool and open up the eye hole. Kind of gave myself a guide. It's for a 10mm dark brown eye, and use that as a guide to how far the hole should be opened up. And then I actually use the ball shape inside of that to create almost like an eye socket that's larger on the inside than it is where the eye went through the hole. And that allows me to then move my eye back and forth, up and down a little bit with some tools as I need to get it working where it's supposed to be. Probably can't see this, but I'll show you in a second. Just make sure your hole's centered on your drill hole through the head and large enough that your glass eye will fit in it, like this. And then use the tool inside that area to open up a larger cavity for your eye to slide around in. I try not to take any more wood off on the outer surfaces than I have to. Just large enough to get that eye in there. And then I always use a little piece of sandpaper and just take off the rough stuff around the edges. And I think you'll find that helpful when you actually are using your setting material and that you don't have anything sticking up in the way of your eye. And then just check your eye that it'll go in there, and there's lots of room for it. You can see it moving around in there. So I've got lots of room to get it in there. And there'll be a little ring of clay around the outside. I use the epoxy sculpt material for setting the eyes up. Anyway, double check your front view. You can make sure that your cavity is up and down, front to back is where it's supposed to be. So we're back at doing the putting the eyes in this buffalo head here. Just wanted to show you a couple of little things here on the bird here. When I'm going to set my eyes here, I usually give myself like a sort of a bullseye, these registration marks here, because when I put the clay in around the eye, if I didn't have those, I wouldn't have anything to really reference keeping the pupil centered in the eye socket. So I like to draw in these 4 little registration marks that help me keep it left to right and up and down where I want it, at least fairly close anyway. And I do that on both sides as I'm putting the eyes in. And I wanted to show you this picture of the original carving again. Notice the eye's not a big wide open eye. It's more of a teardrop shape, a little bit closed up from the bottom lid moving upwards on the bird. So I'm trying to get that kind of a look on it, a bit of a sleepy, lazy look to the bird. And so that's what we'll be doing. And then the other thing is just to show you some of the tools that I'm using to do this. So I'll use an X-Acto knife there for a nice clean cut on some of the clay. I have these dental tools that I use with small points that help me move the clay around. Just wet the tool so it doesn't stick. I use a straight pin sometimes in the front corner just to clean things up, make sure I get a nice pointed front corner of the eye. There's a small paintbrush which we'll wet and use that for cleaning up around the eye, and you can actually push the clay around a little bit with that. I'm using the epoxy sculpt material, part A and B. That's 50-50 mix. And then I have a little squirt bottle of water. I just squirt some drops of water on the desk here, and then I use the tools in that to keep things from sticking. So we'll move on to the rest of that in a minute here. So the next step is taking the clay material, and I've mixed up 2 little balls here that give me the total volume of what I think I need, and the best way to get the right proportions is to make 2 balls about the same size, and then I just start mixing them together. Here I also use a few drops of water in there. That helps make it work together a lot better and makes it a little softer, a lot easier to work with. So I just keep working that around with my fingers. Maybe a little bit more water. It is water soluble, this clay. So if you get it on your brushes, on the brush there, you can make sure you rinse it out and wash it out with soapy water right when you're done, otherwise you'll ruin the brush for sure. So we get this, we get a nice consistency here, so easy to work with. So the first thing I do is I take a bunch of material and I just want to fill the cavity where the eyes go. I do that on both sides of the eye. You should have a little bit left over for what you need for your eyelid. Fill that up, maybe need a little bit more. And then I take the eyes and I place them, try to center them up in that as best you can. I really just want to get them stuck on there for now. Get them in about the right location. Just check the pupil and that. Kind of looks like hell right now, but it gets better. So then the secret part is pushing the eye in to the correct depth. So I'm always looking at the front of the bird. It looks pretty bug-eyed right now, but I'm always looking at the front of the bird, and I want to get that in till I'm happy with it. I don't like eyes that are sunk way deep into it, because then your surface has to go down to the eye in it, and it makes it look doesn't look quite right. So we just have to get them pushed in. I usually use the eraser on the end of a pencil to do that, because I can hold that, and I remember we want the eyes pointed slightly forward and slightly down, and I can use the eraser by pushing on the eye and just kind of working that down. You'll see the excess clay comes out, and then I just clean all of that off in that area around the eye. And then I do the same on the other side. Check that from the front. Might be a little too far for me on that side, not sure. It's probably okay. I clean the front corner of the eye. That's the important part. Keep that front corner cleaned right up so you can see what that looks like from the front without anything in the way. Yeah, I'm gonna take that eye out because I just think it's just a bit too deep for me, so just use my tool and plunk that out. Takes a bit of practice to get this. Clean up that excess. Just get them going. Okay, so keep working it until you get the right depth. And the right depth is, you'll know it's right when they don't look buggy-eyed, you know, with the eyes kind of stuck out where they don't belong. You should be able to just see maybe 20 or 30% of the height of the pupil when you look at it from the front.